Let's get started. So, welcome everybody. Great to have people dialing in. It's an absolute pleasure to have Kev Woods giving a talk for us this evening. We raise money with each of these talks, and for those of us that are working and can afford it, we encourage a donation of, well, we reckon at least £5 per talk is a reasonable donation for the quality of what you're going to hear. And in the chat window, I've pasted the link to Kev's nominated charity, which is Lochaber MRT. Some of you maybe have made use of them already, and if not, some of you may make use of them in the future. So please donate generously if you can, and if you want to put any questions in the chat window, we'll pick those up at the end and run through those with Kev at the end. I guess if there's anything burning that you want to say in the meantime, then come off mute and you can chip in. Otherwise, I'll hand over to Kev. So Kev, thank you very much.
Oh no, thanks very much. Cheers for having us. Just double check. Yeah, you can all see the screen and all good that way. Yeah. So yeah, just here to talk about the Winter Munros. It was a trip I did. It now feels like a million years ago with sort of stuff going on, but it was December 2019 to March 2020. So I thought I'd start as well with just a few slides about the origins and where it came from, just as an idea, and of course also the trip itself. And so yeah, just straight into it. Tons of ground to cover. Ended up taking, as I say there, so it was about 3 months in the end. And tons of ground to cover very quickly in the talk and at the time, I suppose. So for me, it started really in terms of kind of where I got the idea from. I ended up, I'll just click that. Summer 2013, I just had a summer out in the Munros, and that was kind of good fun. And so I was 21, and I just went for again, it was 3 month round, which is funny. It was kind of coincidence. They worked out very similar in time, but so this year I ended up learning loads about getting around the hills on this summer, and it was really quite sort of tricky and tough sometimes, and certainly learned a lot. Really enjoyed it, but big thing for me at the time, and it just ended up that I was. Yeah, I remember thinking about the winter at the time and about like, God, this is hard enough in summer. Imagine you did it in winter. That would just be like ballistically difficult, but like not really seriously at all. Just getting around them at all was just hard enough and enough effort for me, certainly at the time. So, but I did end up thinking about the winter in the end, and don't really know where it came from, but I sometimes think to myself, or I've heard it where sometimes objectives like pick you, like it's almost like you don't pick them, they pick you. And for me, like the winter round totally fell into that category. It was I think it was probably just sort of thoughts in the head, and like not thinking too much about it, and then thinking more about it, and then, oh God, imagine that, and you end up just processing it more and more. And before I knew it, I was like starting to think like, oh God, I'm getting really obsessed with this idea, all the while doing tons of hill days, really enjoying it. I'd done kind of by this point maybe sort of couple Munro rounds, so just going out in the hills myself normally, plus the summer. So just, yeah, clocking up hill experience, and also clocking up hill experience just in winter. Because I remember at the time when I started thinking about it, I was like, I wasn't always totally sure about getting up these mountains in winter. Like in winter conditions, it was a bit more marginal. It's like, oh, would I be cool with that? Or would I get turned back by something? I wasn't totally on the ball. So having like a long-term goal to sort of drive towards, yeah, just to use a long-term goal to just up the levels of both motivation, but try and drive the skills higher. So I was sort of had it in mind as a really long-term thing. Like I'll work towards this, and maybe one day it would be cool. And one of the things I did do, I'll show you some slides here. The next three, they're quite technical, but I would say that if you're kind of looking at them like, oh God, it's information or graphs and things, just ignore them. They're not wholly relevant. They're not big part of the story, but the reason I thought I'm going to put them in here just as a sort of quite specific thing, because they were relevant to my planning it, and I think they were really the thought process of going through these sort of tons of data was like a big part for me in terms of learning the winter Munros. And so it kind of looked like stuff like this. So it's the date, it's the wind speed, direction, the precipitation 1 to 5, the temperature. It just comes from MWIS, and then all the like station readings and the pressure. And I did this like every single day, and then I would write down what the weather was doing just to process it in my head, like what's the weather doing today. And this is all done like totally at home, and then writing down the avalanche forecast, and then thinking, wow, could you do that hill day? Would it work? Would it not work? Were you walking into a storm? And I ended up doing this for like 3 winters, just the act of like taking down information like that in that sort of spreadsheeted way for 4 months, right? Really helped get a handle on what does the winter weather do, because I kind of supposed from the very outset that this is going to be all about weather, and it will begin with weather and it will finish with weather. So off the back of all that spreadsheet data, I could take all that, and then I could just obviously visualize it here, and then you've got, I think I can't remember which way around it is. Yeah, the blue lines are freezing level, which sometimes hits 0, so Glen level, really cold. And then I think it's probably wind as well. Yeah, and you start to see trends there, and so you sometimes get the northerly airflows, and then you sometimes get the westerly airflows. And one thing that was really clear, I did this all the time from like 2015, 16, 17, 18 or something like that. And it became really clear that it's like no winter is normal. And like we all know that, but just seeing these sort of graphs, the way things fluctuate so drastically, it's like, right, there's no standard if you're looking for a way to plan through it. But certainly for planning through it, it seemed to, it seemed to be just embrace whatever comes. But the surprising part was when I did those graphs, or sorry, the spreadsheets that I mentioned, that I kind of started to feel like I could have done something every single day. So far from thinking that winter weather was just like relentlessly horrendous, it started to become, well, yeah, most of those, occasionally there'd be a day where you just couldn't imagine doing something, but most of them I feel like I could have. And I thought, well, if I could do something on pretty much all the days, then you're probably in with a decent chance. And yeah, I got closer and closer and just started realizing it's like, God, I'm thinking about this more and more. So one last technical slide, I suppose. You can get these things in FatMap now. You can get like computer generated, but I don't know if that was about, maybe it was. This is just avalanche probability based solely on slope aspect. So slopes between 30 to 45, the sort of prime is in red. So you're like, right, think about that. And then if they're steeper, they're blue, and if they're not steep, then they just roll back to green. And so you can have an idea of sort of traveling choices. One of the really instructive parts I found with these was that it really showed me that in terms of slope aspect, because below 20 degrees, aka green, you're really not getting avalanche ever. And I'm sort of petrified of avalanches, really conservative. I think in terms of risk, I'm really conservative. Like I don't like probabilities, it just freaks me out. So, but I think it's good that you can sort of work your way around about that. So just made these. I thought the bottom one was a wee bit kind of interesting, where imagine you had a massive day in the Cairngorm Plateau, say for instance a storm came in, and that corrie, it's called Corrie Ore, just going down to Currow or Boffey, imagine that got loaded, and then you've got that sort of 50-meter band at the top, which is like right on the level, right on the angle that it would just love to start an avalanche. And on a westerly, it is it's the one that would get loaded. So it's those sort of little pinch points. I always thought of them as pinch points, as moments where the consequence or the potential risk is higher, and it's like make sure they're okay, and the majority of the journey should work. At least that was in principle. So really putting all this together, I really enjoyed it. I'm only devoting, like, this is the last slide I would devote to pre the winter itself, but like in truth, that was the really fun part, because it's just like working out how you're going to do it, what's all your skills, and then just, yeah, there's a sort of rough list. And I mean, you could pick apart every single one of those, you know, fitness, physiology, navigation, just pick one, and you could just pull it apart and just go right into the fine details, get into the weeds with it. And that was like years sort of. Yeah, I just got to a point with the winter, like I never really chose to do it, but I definitely felt like, God, this is just driving me insane. If I don't just go and even give it a shot, I'm just not going to live with it. So I better just give it a shot. So yeah, 2018, I thought about going for it. And then in 2018, there was actually no winter conditions whatsoever. So it was really lucky that I didn't go for it. I could have done it really quickly, but it would have been like, yeah, there was barely any snow. So on the 22nd of December 2019, I headed off to the Isle of Mull. Just a month before that, the picture in the corner here with the sun and the cairn is me Laravan in Neudart, and that was the finishing my 3rd round. Just nicked in before the winter. So that was cool. And I headed to Mull. So this is myself and Struan on top of Benmore and Mull. It was the first one. And but going to Mull, I felt like really good about it. Like, I think I have a really good state of mind for that sort of thing. For me was like, just think of today and think of tomorrow and maybe the day after, in exceptional circumstances the day after. But apart from that, it all just disappears into oblivion on either side. And it's really nice because it's very immediate living. It's just, I'm dealing with today or I'm dealing with the forecast tomorrow. It's nothing else matters. And going to Mull, I could visualize day 1, 2, maybe 3. And apart from that, I didn't have a clue what I'd do anywhere. Before I sort of launch into it all as well, maybe it's worth a sort of very quick chat about style and also the sort of constraints. And one of the things with the winter time, obviously with the weather just being like totally rubbish quite a lot of the time, I thought like really deeply about backpacking it, and I definitely planned. I did a whole plan where it's like that's what you would do if you were backpacking it, and I ended up like actually dropping it quite late on because for a whole multiple reasons. Social is part of it, but nutritionally is a big part of it. And also the reliance and the need to rely on other people. So what I ended up doing was I just bought a battered old van secondhand, did a quick conversion on it, and I just did it as a sort of the Martin Moran-esque style, base yourself out of a van and use that to access your winter Munros. The big upside to that is that you can go and you can do a hill there, and then the weather's bad and you can go over there. So it adds some things on, but it actually also takes a hell of a lot away. So just me, myself, and my digs for the winter, and I set about it. This is Ben Cruachan, so late December, but kind of still that sort of thin snowpack. Doing sort of straight into sort of just 4 and 5 Munro days. At my pace, I'd just try and walk basically from the very first light to the dark, and maybe a bit after, but just fill the light and do as much as I can and get into it. And wee hitch in the just beginning, I was coming down Benmore at Green Laddoch, the main picture's to Binion, and it was just beautiful sort of crusted snow and things, but you can see in the picture there of the ankle that there's not a lot of snow, but I was coming down the hill there, and my I've never had this in sort of 15 getting on years of walking. I was just walking down and my ankle just boom snapped forward, like I just hit a rock funny, and I had this, it flooded with pain all through my Achilles, which had got sort of crushed in the back of just where the Achilles runs up the bones. Had kind of like just, it was really, really sore, and I was really worried about it. But it turned out to be okay. I did go and see a physio last minute, and after that I felt much happier that, okay, it is okay. But I've not really injured myself on the hills ever. I try not to. So when something like that does happen, the sort of flip side is like, oh, I don't know what to do about it. So for a couple of days I was kind of worried. Turned out to be okay. And then I just kind of got going. This was Hogmanay 2019, which was amazing. I know a lot of people were out in the hills that day, and it was stunning. Really, really stunning. Same day, Bidgeon and Bain and Glencoe. As you can see, the snowpack's like there's very, very little snow at this point. It really says something towards that sort of early winter and sort of the Highlands where you don't always get that reliable snow. I'd also had a conversation in my head as to, do you start on the 1st or do you start on the 21st or 22nd, the solstice? And I said that I started on the 22nd, but the alternative, which was the Steve Perry backpack, he did the backpack, and he started on the 1st of December. And one thing I was kind of keen to do was go as fast as I could. And I ended up thinking that, well, there might not be winter conditions for December because sometimes there just isn't. And in this case, it was maybe kind of good that I started later because the winter was really late in getting fully established. When I eventually did, it was pretty full on, but that's for the second half of the talk. But a lot of the time it looked like this. A real pattern was emerging where for the whole first part of the winter and beyond, it was just there wasn't a lot of snow. It just rained loads. There was loads of cloud. I barely ever saw a summit view, but I didn't really mind or I didn't really care. I was really I was really, really enjoying it. It just felt like high powered, like finally I'm getting the chance to go and do this winter in Munros. And okay, it's like this, but there's no snow at the moment, but everybody knows that every winter it's just, it does pick up, it does come eventually. So I wasn't really fixated on, oh, there's no snow here, but take the chances and the opportunities you can, and just try and do what you can with what you've got. I suppose that was the ethos. I never set any timetable or schedule of what I should do. I just try to say, like, there's your daylight, there's your weather forecast, what's the maximum that I think I could do, like what's the most full on, and I just try and push it as sort of full on as I could, and whatever popped out would just be the result. That was really the thinking. But the weather was really stormy, and this is like 8-9 o'clock at night on this is the Loch Sloy Dam. Ben Vorlich is above. It absolutely totally teamed it down with rain all day, like heavy, like just small streams were really difficult to cross, and I just waited for the weather front to pass. But the weather front passed about 3 o'clock, and it's sunset at 4 o'clock. So I had very little light, and I just kept going on into the night, because walking at night, I'd much rather just walk from say 4 p.m. to 11 o'clock at night if it meant that you didn't come off just absolutely drowned. If it was like nice like this, you've got some moonlight up there, that's moon in the corner. It was really pretty pleasant, and it was nice, and it was enjoyable. Yeah, really actually enjoyed this stuff quite a lot, but I didn't realize what a big sort of tactic it would become to be walking at night. The forecast, just before I play a quick video here, the forecast for the day after that Araker day was like, it was one of the ones where it says like torrential rain and like 100-mile-an-hour gusts, and I was just like, I had a problem with the van because it was secondhand. I had a problem with the van, so I went and got it fixed, and I didn't think I was missing much. Just to get to anything, it would have been like, you're not going to do it much on that day, so fine, I'll have a quick day off. Other times, yeah, very rarely, obviously things come good. This is Glen Lochy, so I don't suppose we've got any sound, but it doesn't really matter because it's all just wind noise and things. Yeah, just one stonking sunny day. I loved it when it was like this, but it wasn't like this very often. Just the occasional day of sun, and then you'd be back to like a week or two of some nice drizzle and cold and sleet and wind and things. But I had a night on this hill where that's the moon coming up and the sun going down, and then I walked all the way over to Ben Heisgernach in the dark, complete darkness, moon up, completely clear, no wind, and you're just wandering around on top of this hill covered in snow, so everything's glistening at you. I didn't realize how much I'd enjoy the night walking part, but I loved it. And just back late at night, it was really good. And then other times it looked like this. This is the River Lochy, burst its banks in Killin. So this was just after that day, you know, another weather front piles in, and it's just gone to pot. So yeah, another day where this day I did not go out in the hills till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was just torrential, utterly torrential. I think that's a car park, or at least a park. It's the side of a car park. Just totally burst its banks. And then I went out in the evening and had an amazing evening. This is Mayo Gurdy, just up onto the summit there. Quite a simple hill, but totally magical experience. And it's that thing with the moonlight, when the light's rarefied like that, when you don't have much light and you're just slightly sleep deprived. I didn't expect to go and enjoy this because everybody slags off Mayo Gardy, but as soon as I went outside and you just got this crisp night air and the moonlight and the stars are out and the sort of the peppering of snow in the hills, totally magic. Like one of the best memories of the winter. Just like, I am so glad I came and did this. And that was a really persistent theme of the Winter Munro thing, was I am just so glad I came and did this. This was like, I got to bed at 3 in the morning and I was back up a few hours later. This is just the Carnethy 4. This is Andy. And went and did a round, and then it's kind of back out in the hills again. So we had this very short period of good weather, and then it was straight away to storms again. Summit of Schiehallion, the same night as the Carnethy day. This was like 1 in the morning. And just loving the intensity of like next hill, being out in the hill loads. And the weather here was really picking up. So I got a couple of hours of sleep, and then I was just up onto Schiehallion. And already the sort of cumulus was like whizzing by in the moonlight, and you could just tell there's another huge weather front coming. And it was a really bad weather front. I mean, it was just, yeah, it was just like sustained blizzards, and just it was like the gusts were up at like 100 forecast. I don't know what it was, but it was just like, you're just not going to do stuff. So you might as well pull an all night or stay out all night, and then sleep when the storms are. It really messes with your obviously your sleep cycle. But I suppose if you end up getting stuff done where you otherwise wouldn't get stuff done, it's kind of worth it. And I just wanted to kind of push it as far as I could. And this, yeah, just me going about and as far as I can, as hard as I can. Really enjoyed it. When sunrise came, this is Milne and Tarmachan. It was the last one of that sort of southern bunch, sort of 73 in. I left Ben Lomond for the last of the whole winter, so that was left at the bottom. But there's just this dirty purple light coming in of a weather front as the dawn comes up. And shortly after, I mean, on the summit of Milne and Tarmachan, it was just absolutely pounding you. And it's like, you know what, I wouldn't have good chances here if I was trying to get up and down any hill in the daytime. But I just had like a night and then a day and then a night in the hills, so I was kind of fine to sleep. And with that finished, there was no break in the weather, so I ended up going across to the Eastern Highlands and just making kind of progress with these sort of, it went all kind of quite blizzardy, just white and blowing snow. And it was one of those ones where it doesn't look like there's great snow volumes because it's all been blown clean in places. And then when you actually get up on it, it's just like, oh, geez, the snow is so deep. And it's just these pockets where you're just sinking then back out again. So I was quite conservative there. I got the van stuck at the Glenshire Ski Centre. I wanted to go and do more that day. I just wanted to cross over the road and go and do the other side. But I thought I better just take my chance to get dug out while there's people still here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be moving. So yeah, just a time to just try and just keep getting stuff done. And then yeah, a video here, crossed into the Cairngorms. I met my friend Helen here. This is Helen walking up to Ben Ann. And again, there wasn't not masses of snowfall, just this nice sort of crisp winter coating. It was quite good for moving quickly. And we headed across. So I think it was 4 days in the end, just sort of basically Braemar and then over the Munros and then down to Glenfeshie. And it was amazing. Yeah, it was a brilliant trip. A night like this, stayed out till, yeah, this was Benachurin. I went down to the Hutchison, met Helen, and then at the back there, I went up at Derry Cairngorm, I think 9 o'clock at night. And unfortunately, the wind started pounding, like I was actually having to hold on to just like, and this was pitch black on Derry Cairngorm. And the next day, you can't hear the roar of the wind here, but it was sunny, but just deafening. You can see there, just trying to get over Ben McDowie just to get to Carnethy, straight into a headwind, really, really powerful winds. And it was just, it's funny that when you just, yeah, I'm not getting much done just because when the weather comes in. I suppose if you took the, you know what it's like with any sort of anything endurance wise, if you took the whole picture out in terms of all the environmental constraints, it's like you could be really consistent, but sometimes just with adding in weather and adding in wind, it makes things very wildly. So I really felt that. The next morning came out of Carnethy Bothy and the thaw had set in again. And this is looking up at the Devil's Point and the snow was like gone. It's like, right, winter's just disappeared again. So I had a few days there. So what we did here was just to walk out over to Glenfeshie via 2 Munros. And at that point, it was, well, as I say, you always, I suppose in any winter, you're going to get points where you're a little bit, you know, if it's less wintry, then just go further, I suppose. And like, if you look at that, that's like a May snowpack. That's the Mona Lea. The photo is on the top of Achalik. Yep. And yeah, so it's like, okay, well, it's better at the moment. Take the advantage. And at other times, it looked like that. Very quick one about this. This is the Tarf Hotels in the back of that. So the centre of, obviously, in the middle of the Athol area, really remote, but really deep snow. And I did Carnacalaman, went north to Carnanyeller and Scarsach, and then cut back to the Bothy. And it was like the whole day from absolute dawn till dusk. It was just deep snow and really wild, really out there. And again, just really enjoying it. Like, this is just exactly what you come for. Getting the tar from midwinter. Sadly, the day after this, I ended up with a migraine, which I've got pills for, but the pills constrict, I think they constrict blood flow or something like that. So your energy is just like, so it's walking out in a headwind with that going on. It wasn't very pleasant. So I was getting pretty close, yeah, so starting to work my way further west, and still the weather hadn't changed. This is my last sort of hill in the whole east. This is Carnethy on Bainaglow, and just windy, really windy. Oh, I might have a solution. Hey, look at that, YouTube was down. Here's a good example of sheltering the summit cairn and the wind. And shelter again. The thing with and back again. The thing with this day was that actually it flicked like a switch. Keir got read 130 miles an hour gusts, and I just find that ridiculous because I could still stand, but it was quite tricky to kind of keep going. Yeah, it didn't. Maybe I got lucky with that one. Yeah, the weather just the readings just went through the roof, and I was sort of staggering to the cairn. It was really fun. I didn't mind it. I quite enjoyed it, but yeah, it wasn't good for maybe getting any more done. No, keep going. And then I worked my way west, yeah, so getting into Lochaber, I really had the benefit of folk like Helen, so really just pals in Lochaber for support, for help. This is Carmore Jerrick. Did the big run from Loch Treg across to Ben Nevis. Tons of Munros, just trying to go. Absolutely loved it. The thing about these trips is that I'd originally be thinking to do like the Ben Alder area, but this weather front that I'm in now was coming in, and I wasn't sure how deep the weather front would go, so it was like a last minute like change all the logistics. And if I'd been backpacking it, that wouldn't have happened because you're stuck where you are, but you get that flexibility when you're just got the van, and I think that was probably contributing to I could really just continue with pace. Yeah. Summit Ben Nevis, half finished bottle of lager. It had just been left. You could tell because there was no snow in it, and it just doesn't escape its popularity, summer or winter. That rime ice is just blowing onto the lens. Probably toughest day. A couple of days later, the Munros, so it's just obviously chain of 10. I really wanted to just get them all done in a winner. The weather forecast was it was like 0 degrees, 1 degree. It was just persistent drizzle, numb, cold. And the distance itself I think would have been fine because I'd done days that were like that size or just under that size, but the numb cold was just absolutely kicked the absolute out of me. Totally flattened by the end of that day. It did start to feel quite serious at one point. It was my longest day kind of in all the statistics, I suppose. But yeah, just this numb freezing chill was kind of tricky, but yeah, so I just kept going, stuck with it, and got that done. Now what happened here was big change in the whole Munros was that when I got to this Lochaber area, I'd been staying kind of east, as far east as I could, because all the weather was coming from the west, and because of that I was sort of I was just running out of hills that weren't gradually more west. As I went to do all these ranges, I had the Ben Alder area that I mentioned I missed, and they were the last summits that I had that weren't now Northwest Highlands. So the day after this, I think I had like just a few hours of sleep, dragged myself out of bed, and it just felt like dragging myself out of bed, and went away to Killewer Station and then pedalled up Loch Ocean and into the Ben Alder Hills, and I had the most amazing days. Just 2 days that looked like this, no wind, kind of 40 k's a day, exactly how you'd want. Bit of snow, but you can still move okay. Did Ben Alder after dark. It was my final summit in this day. You're just wandering over the summit of Ben Alder, and it was crystal clear, so you could imagine just hanging about yourself on the top of Ben Alder in winter in calm conditions, and you can just see the lights of like Bridge of Orchy, and you can see the lights of Aviemore up the top of Loch Ericht, and you can like see across to Rannoch Moor in little cars. It's like the whole of Scotland. Totally special. And if there's anything of the Winter Munros that I'm like, that justifies it. It's these sort of moments that I suppose that means more to me than anything, if it's something to push you to places that maybe you just wouldn't go, or you wouldn't go as often, and have that really immersive thing. That meant a lot to me. And on the other side, I suppose statistically as well, I was really pleased with progress. Up to this point I had done it's not quite 2/3, it's getting on for 2/3 of the Munros. I'd been out about 50 days. Really kind of this is cool. This is a really good pace. But unfortunately, the weather forecast was looking absolutely bonkers bad. Can't remember which storms it was, but in the second week of February, it just went to say there will be a prolonged period of storm cycles covering the country. This is Helen on top of Ben Hope. Basically, there was a low pressure satellite the size of the Atlantic, and it was just swirling around the Atlantic like that. It wasn't like a little one that crosses the country and then disappears, and you've got like a lull on either side. It's just like there's a low pressure, and it would just feed blizzards off onto the mountains day after day after day, and it's just like, oh my goodness. So I went really far north because they escape some of the real rain, and they are quite isolated and slightly shorter. So I thought, okay, that's a good tactic to use for the moment. I got a bug at the same time, so I went up Ben Clebrec, and in the middle of all this, I was basically, my appetite was really suppressed at this point, and I got to this point, which is this point, and it's just like it's just no energy. I was actually this is the top of Ben Clebrec, and because of the virus, no appetite, lack of calories, plus virus, I just ended up like, yeah, you can't climb it. You can't do it this way. This is just not cool. You know, you can't be having to like forcibly be stopped in your tracks. Just really just trying to lie down and sleep. So luckily, in the end, I did sort of pass that really quickly and sort of try and get on with things. So I went back to Glen Shiel. So what I did, I just took a day off after that illness, and then the day off just was the wee moment, and I was sort of writing back. And that thing I talked about of just the low pressure feeding of blizzards off the Atlantic just continued in Glen Shiel. Yeah, it just didn't stop. This is a sort of few clips. Frank was like, right, what do you do? Oh. I went up Fionvine this day. Actually got to the top. I didn't go out this day because this is Glen Shiel. Yeah, that's a waterfall. It's just like, well, what do you do? You know? So it just gets to this point where it's just stupid, where everything in the Northwest is so ridgy or long or remote. And I've done Ben Withers, I've done Ben Hope, Ben Clebrec, Fionvine now. I'm really just dredging the bottom of that barrel of tactical get-outs, and now I'm just starting to hemorrhage time. And it's just so frustrating because up until the end of Lochaber, I'd made like such good progress. I was really happy with myself. I was going so, but this is always going to happen at some point. The sad part was that I didn't have Eastern Highlands to run to because I'd used up the Eastern Highlands, so you just have to stick with it in the Northwest. But yeah, it's all pretty spectacular, but the mental back and forth is just like, not that. But anyway, yeah, here's just a short few clips. This is the Cullen Ridge. Ended up on this day with Mike Lates, just by complete chance, because I walked into his hostel for a night and he just went, when you doing the Cullen? And I was like, I don't know. And he says, go tomorrow. And I was like, what, really? And he was like, yeah, let's go. I was like, all right. So yeah, went off up the Inpin, really pleased to lead this. If I'd thought of anything that I wanted to do was just to get up that. That was brilliant, East Ridge of the Inpin. And then Mike going through to the top. And then we did the whole south end, so essentially did the Cullen in 2 halves. Really nice to have Mike there because he's like Mr. Cullen basically, and it was a really nice offer of him actually. And then a sort of week or 2 later, I ended up. So Dave Mack came up from Lochaber and just went to finish off the ridge basically from the north end at Scourn and Gillian and going south. And I'd previously recce'd all this ridge in summer condition to find where all the abseils, because there's just abseil and abseil and abseil and abseil. And it was really useful because the whole ridge was so buried and so thick with snow that if you hadn't known there was a boulder lying under the snow, you just wouldn't have known to dig it out to get your anchor to make progress. But I got the Cullen finish, and that was like another big crux, I suppose, of the whole thing. In a winter that just didn't stop storming. I really managed to be in the Cullen on like the very few parts where it was, you know, okay. And it didn't really let up. Here was a day, nice sunny day, but the problem is there's like a metre or 2 of snow in some places here. Yeah, I think they actually put out a special warning here because it was a Saturday and everybody would be heading out for the spring. And of course we're getting into March and we all know what happened in March. I didn't get very much done again because it was a high avalanche forecast. I went to Affleck here to try and follow ridges because everything else was just middle of nowhere remote. And I still didn't get that much done because it's just like high avalanche hazard. What do? Do you go up that head wall onto the summit of the mountain? Well, you're not gonna, because you're just straying into like kill yourself territory, and you don't want to do that. It's like I was almost just getting to you just do whatever you can, and sometimes that was annoyingly short and annoyingly brief. But one of the really cool days when I started to sort of wrap up that sort of Afric area was this. I went up to Mamsol on a totally rubbish weather forecast, and this is just low down in a corrie. This isn't remotely high up, and it's just like, oh geez, what are you doing? And I just kept trying to push higher and push higher and push higher. And I had two left in the area. Two mountains, Carnethy and Ben Yunley, middle of nowhere. I didn't want to go back for them, but I was stood on this mountain, this summit here and here, and like spindrift's just getting everywhere, and it's just piling into your bag, and I'm trying to pull on a separate jacket, and I'm just like freezing really, really cold, and I'm just getting cold, and all I want to do is just go down, and I'm like, but I've got two more really remote ones to do. I don't want to go down. And then what happened was the weather just went down a little bit, just a notch, and it was just what I needed at that very moment. I was totally shocked, and in a tiny clearing in the storm, there you go, the summit of Ben Yunley above Loch Malardach, and this is jammed between two flipping enormous storms. Like maybe a few hours after this, just another one just piles in, and you're back to the conditions you had. And being out there was a massive buzz, because like walking to a complete outpost like that, jammed between two winter storms in your own, like that is just like I've cut. I don't want to make a habit of this, but it's just like I've just cut the margins to the absolute fine, and it's working. So it's a really, really good buzz, really, really magical moment. And I got over Carnethy and got the hills done. Yeah, it's like, God, this is it. This is why you do a Munros, and this is just brilliant. This is amazing. Loved it. And then it's worth, so getting into March, I'm getting to the end of my winter. The weather started finally opening up. And really, this is Neudark, absolutely piled with snow. And what was happening really often was that I got like really good weather for Neudark, but when there was bad weather, there was sometimes no snow because it was like warm bad, and then you would just get these massive dumps. This fell the night before, the day before, and so it's still relatively unstable, and it was one of the most unstable snowpacks I saw all winter. Like any time you stepped on a snowbank, it would just like crack. And in some cases, you just get little chunks like slithering away below you. And it's like, well, once again, your options are limited, but I did Muir Booye, Lunavine, and that's all ridges. I think going to Larvin probably would have been okay if it had the time, but not sure. There's a lot of like little head walls and things like that, sort of moments where if you cracked off the snow, it'd be bad news. But what happened was I really, really had wanted to do Neudark across to Sorleys and then up onto Skiernakeich and across to Garach as a big through trip, big backpack. And it like, just because of the snow conditions, it just didn't work out that way. And it's kind of just the way it is. It was a for sure a contradiction of the winter, in that like I really wanted to engage with all these sort of variables. And of course, just winter variables are just flying all over the place. You can barely keep up with them. But at the same time, it's like really frustrated sometimes at the variables, because you just have sometimes it's like I really want to do this, I feel physically fit to do it. Sometimes I'm physically fresh and I'm not unable to because of like physicality. It's like I want it, but it's just like, look at it, there's whether it's avalanche risk or storm. And the problem with this winter was, in the end, by this point, there'd only been a handful of like really decent days, like count on two hands maybe, and like the rest of it was just rotten. So there was really kind of no break. And what had happened was I ended up just running out of like tactical, logistical get outs. And so I was totally happy in the meantime, but certainly getting to the end of it, and I'll just sort of take my time and just you just plow away as fast as you can. I suppose you don't it's going to be like that sometimes. But yeah, I mean, not to say this Neudark day was amazing, and I'm getting really near the end of the Munros. But it's also, of course, worth saying that, unfortunately, the whole COVID kid thing kicked up at this point, and this was Loch Malardach on the 19th, maybe, I can't remember, something like that, 19th-ish of March. It's like days away from lockdown. I was maybe slightly in a bubble. The rest of the country's feeling guilty on this weekend about going out into the hills at all. But like I was like maybe a week away from finishing here. And just in the context of everything that I'd sort of done so far and the wider and just kind of getting through all those storms and everything like that, I was like, I have to finish. And I was getting texts through like at this moment from friends who were just saying Mountain Rescue have just released a statement. They will not be rescuing people from the mountains. Please stay off the mountains. And you just opening up to these beautiful big spring views with I've still got a week left. And I've just got to finish this. I can't not finish this. I need to just move. And every time a well-meaning friend, or totally well-meaning friends, send messages through about the latest government guidelines, just flushes of stress, and just starting to really worry that it's like, oh God, you could really be stopped here at the last moment. Oh yeah, not nice at all. So I was like, yeah, I just need to cut the world out. I think I just need to stop everything. Just world, get away, stop talking to me. I just don't want to, I'm just going to just go inside. I just can't deal with hearing all this because it was really just stressing me out. And like by any normal sort of circumstances, it would just be totally like, I'm totally moderate. I'm just like, yeah, fair enough. Government says, cool, that's fine. Yeah, of course. But like just with a week to go or something like that, just a handful of hills, just can't, yeah, God. So it's kind of ironic that the weather got so good. This is another sunny day in Fisherfield, and the snowpack had got really good too. It was quite firm. Travel conditions were great. This was like just on the cusp of lockdown. I've just only got a few to go, and the weather got good, so I can do these massive trips suddenly at the same time. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't be in the hills. You shouldn't be in the hills. What should I do? What should I do? Just do one more day. Just do one more day. And I was just absolutely petrified. And it turned into this sort of schism, sort of dual thing of like, I've just got this hill world that I've been in for this box for 3 months of just get up, go and do my hill day, totally in a routine, totally in a just, yep, totally happy. And then you've got this outside thing that's going on that feels completely alien and remote, but it's so important. And it's just, you can't get away from it. And nothing, I would never say anything like this. If you're that far into like a winter round, nothing will stop you, but it's like something's about to stop you. You might not like literally finish this. What ended up happening was that, so I ended up going into lockdown. I had like a few summits left. I had just a couple of hill days up at Inverlow, so in the Ullapool Road. And I was just like really worried that, because it's like, yeah, just, like imagine you just stopped by the police or something like that. I was just like, yeah. So I'd leave like 5 in the morning, like pre-dawn, get up in the hills, do the hill day. It's like, oh, thank God I've done the hill day. And then I'd just have one hill day left. And that was basically Ben Jirach to Shinavrai at Inverlow. And so it's around the 5 hills. It's a pretty big sort of, yeah, it's sort of just like you walk into Ben Jirach, you've got the sort of crust before, you go out to Shinavrai, which is nice and remote and out there. And yeah, I'd left Ben Lomond for last. Shinavrai would have been my penultimate Munro. So once I theoretically finished that day, which was my second last day, I'd have nothing left to do but Ben Lomond. And by that point, like I was just like, yeah, basically, yeah. What am I trying to say? Basically, without being so, I don't know how to put it, without being OTT, it just like, I don't know, my head just snapped. Like, when I got to Shinavrai, like, I think I just started thinking like maybe you shouldn't do that, because the other part as well was it's like, I don't want to make any dramas or fuss about what I'm doing. I just want to sort of, you know, try and do what's best. So why are you, yeah, so, yeah, you don't want to make a big scene. And it's like, God, if you go and finish, you're going to make a scene. Like, this was witch hunt territory, and like everybody just getting slaughtered online that they would do anything, which is fair enough, you know, that's the way of it, but it didn't kind of make anything feel easier for me. So yeah, this is just a little clip from the top of Shinavrai. This is the top of Shannon Fry. This is also the last Munro, my fourth Munro round. And it was meant to be the penultimate mountain of my winter, but it could be the final mountain of my winter. Yeah, and like just really sort of really deeply unhappy, I suppose. Just like, this is, yeah, totally wrong about going and finishing it. And then yeah, I don't know, head just went spiraled right down after that. Like walking out, just fucking terrible state. Really, really, really bad. Because I basically had obviously the sort of 15k or 7 whatever k back to Inverleigh, and the whole way just thinking about like Winter Munros -1, and like trying to process it, and like, and I even just the full scale of like years, or like I probably started thinking about this in 2015 and got so like into it that I was like, you know, you've got to do it, and then going and doing it all and stopping one short. So I was just totally processing stopping one short, and yeah, it just was totally deflating. Yeah, what else to say? Yeah, I didn't enjoy it one bit. So what happened off the back of that was I headed back to Glasgow, where the folks are, and I just was like, yeah, I don't think I should. And originally everybody that I spoke to was just like, yeah, go and finish it. And I was just like, no, I really don't think I should. Basically, as soon as like anybody gets hold of this, it would just be like, you complete this, that, the next thing. Like, I suppose in a purely selfish level, I'd love to finish it, but I just didn't feel like I could. Anyway, so yeah, so somewhere along the way that sort of next day, I was just like, okay, I'm going to go to Ben Lomond. What the heck? Do you know what? Even if I never tell anybody, and I might not ever tell anybody, if it's that offensive, always caught between like, it'd just be terror, and on the other hand it would be like, well, physically stop me if you want to stop me, you know. So like, I suppose fear like that also creates this headspace of like kind of hard edge, but it's hard edge only because you're scared. So at points I would just be like, yeah, if somebody wants to stop me, then actually just come and get me. Like, I don't care. Like quite a sort of, yeah, sort of mad to say it, but it's like, yeah, sort of felt like that. But yeah, I thought even if I tell nobody, I know I've done it, and that means a lot to me. And I never put anything up for a long time, felt really uncomfortable about saying it or discussing it at all. But I ended up going to Ben Lomond and finishing it. So just a really short clip, not that one. Yeah, just a little short clip of finishing it. Oh my God. Well, there we go, the summit of Ben Lomond. Oh my God. So yeah, like, as soon as I went for that day, as soon as I just went for it, I was just like, that's totally the right thing to do. As soon as I walked out into the hill, I was like, yep, that's the right choice. And to be honest, I was really, really, really shocked when so I did keep quiet about it. I think I put something out there, and I was just really shocked that actually nobody came back, like almost nobody. And that was a massive shock. I really thought that it would be like, what did you do that for? Why did you do that? And it didn't work out like that at all. Just folk were just really nice about it. And that was like, God, if only I knew that 10 days ago. Anyway, it all works out for the best, I suppose. I picked Ben Lomond because it was my first Munro ever did, but also just so folk can join. In the event, nobody could join, of course. And I technically shouldn't have been there, but it's just like meant a lot to finish it. And yeah, real experience. I was really glad to wrap it up. And yeah, what a weird end, but it doesn't define the whole thing for me. And yeah, great winter round. Really enjoyed it. I don't know what else to say than it was just a lot of fun, challenging, fun, and I worked for kind of a long time, and yeah, I'm kind of managed it. So thanks very much. That's really cool. Oh, I thought I had another slide. Stop it there. There you go. Thanks very much, everybody, really, for listening. Thanks to Carnethy for having me. Really nice just to chat about it, and really appreciate that. So cheers.
Yeah, well, Kevin, that was superb. Thank you very much. That was a really, really good finale to an amazing series of Winter Talks. That was brilliant storytelling and great photos, a really inspiring story. And I totally get the torment of trying to work out what was the right thing to do back in March of COVID, because I guess we were all trying to work out what was going on. And I can't imagine a single person on this call wouldn't have done exactly the same thing as you. We would have done exactly the same
yeah
thing.
No, thanks very much. Yeah, cheers.
Certainly I would have done. So yeah, we'll just jump onto some questions if that's okay, and I'll just jump in with a couple to begin with.
Cool.
You said you had a virus early on. Do you think that was COVID?
That's a very good question. I don't think it was COVID, no. It was that was the first week of February, so I think it might have been a little bit too early for here, but it was just it was almost nothing but like lack of appetite. That was a weird thing I felt. I don't think that's the COVID at all, is it? I just felt like I just didn't feel like eating. One moment of nausea where I felt like I was going to puke, but lack of energy through lack of eating, because I didn't feel like eating, and just flattened through lack of energy. So probably not. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. My last question, then I'll go to the ones in the chat. But how did you dry everything? Yeah,
surprisingly effectively. Yeah, I kind of wondered how that would go. Anyway, it was okay. I would just hang stuff up. If it was wet, just hang it up. Sometimes
in the van.
Yep. Just yeah. I know, it's really surprising.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Like if the jacket was wet at the top, by the morning it would be just round the waist or something like that, you know. And like I did also have spares as well. Yeah, so if stuff was like most time I was okay, but if stuff was saturated, I maybe had like a spare base layer or something like that, so it kind of helped. But yeah, not too bad.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I'll go through the questions in the chat window. So from Hartree, who's helped organise these talks, impressed how you embraced the weather and adapted your plans, but was there a best day and a worst day?
Aye. Best day maybe any of the days walking over sort of plateaus in the middle of moonlight nights with nothing but yourself and just loving it. And if I was to pick any one of them, maybe Ben Alder. And also Ben Alder for, in terms of statistically, in terms of size of days, you know, up at 40 Ks for me, big. And just big days back to back, you know, all the moors into all the Ben Alder hills, just wandering around in that plateau at night. Awesome. It's real, like, how can I better that, you know? Really pleased. Worst day, maybe the virus one. And it wasn't a bad day, it was just like, I never had a really, really bad day. I think it was more just a day where I had just had zero energy. And so it was the logical low point maybe, but without actually being a mental low point. I was just hold the tension, keep with it, and just take a rest. Cool, I'm back. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Murdo McEwen, amazing photos and weather. Did you carry a personal locator beacon or similar for emergencies?
Yeah, I had a bit of experience with them. I'll try and keep, there's lots of little bits to this, but I bought one So I bought a Garmin for that because I was hoping that it would have GPS tracking in it as well, because I wanted to get that off my phone. And I bought it, and the subscription was, the script £25 a month or something like that. I sort of worked out how to sync it with your phone because it's quite fiddly. So I actually had one paid for, and I never worked out how to use it. And what I did have was, so I had my phone doing tracking. I had battery packs to charge at night. I ended up, in terms of like safety and things like that, I was really, really I would tell like family, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm going, this is when you expect. Obviously on the summits you get 4G a lot of the time, so it's actually not that remote. You don't have that remote feeling. Like I remember like feeling really remote before mobile phones got really good, which I feel like it wasn't that long ago actually, was it? And you just feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, whereas like with a mobile phone now you can just be like in the middle of nowhere and totally connected. So it's definitely changed it, I guess, in that regard. And to that end, I also have like Google Maps shared with family, so they can all check in. They could all see where I was if I had signal, and I think that kind of dealt with most situations. Yeah.
Okay. Mike Andrew, love your enthusiasm for the hills. Mark Hartree again. What next? The Corbetts in winter.
I don't know, maybe not the Corbetts in winter. I wonder how much winter conditions, I have thought about it, like just casually thought about it, but I wondered how much like winter conditions the Corbetts would get. So, just the way they're being a bit lower, you would get a lot of bog, you'd get a lot of wet. Would they attract as good winter conditions? Probably not. So I'm not really sure about that. I no immediate plans whatsoever, but I could totally imagine doing like a Corbetts, like just going out for a summer. Actually, I never mentioned, but I got quite a lot of help at quite a lot of points here, just with bothies and food and things like that, from Lorraine McCall, who did the Corbetts a few years ago. She came and joined us for kind of quite a few bits. So she's told me about it, and I've heard things about it, and you never know, but maybe, who knows?
Yeah. Okay. From Rob Woodall, who's a legend and has done a brilliant winter talk on the videos page for anybody that hasn't seen it. He was also in this series of winter talks. Loved the passion and enthusiasm, superb presentation. From Mark, I'm not sure which Mark, wonder what you were up to on 15th of February, the day we were racing the Carnethy 5 hill race. It was very wild in the Pentlands, never mind in the Munros.
Oh, on the 15th.
15th of February, you probably have to go back to one of your spreadsheets.
Yeah, that's quite specific, isn't it? Yeah.
It was Storm Dennis, was it? Storm Dennis?
What the heck, I've actually got this all listed out. What, the 15th of February?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's quite a specific date.
I was on the hill. I was in, Carnival Ben Morasant. Yeah. Oh, I remember that being so wild. Yes. I went up at sort of 4 in the morning to try and beat the weather front, and I was like on the North Ridge of Carnival with like getting blasted by huge bits of hail into the face in the dark. So you're like everything on just full, and it's dark and totally wild place. Yeah, that was.
Wow. Well, that perhaps puts the hill running experience on the Carnethy 5 into perspective.
I might have been a little bit slower than the runners in the Carnethy 5.
Yeah, I don't know. From Joanne, how many days were lost due to bad weather, or did you go on the hill whatever the weather?
I in the beginning, when there wasn't so much, so the first half was stormy, but it wasn't like crazy stormy. And I had a really good run of about 26 days all through January. I didn't take a day off, and it was really good doing that. Really pleased to have done that. But there was maybe some bad weather on either side of that, and I did sort of just have a day off. Yeah, so there was a couple there. And then what happened when it just got ridiculous into February. February was, I know folk in the West Coast who like live in the Northwest, and they were just like, I just don't remember a winter like it. So I don't think I was being daft. I think it was just like ridiculous. But when that happened, combined with it being Northwest Hills, just because they're bigger and stuff and dropping time, like I would do, like there would be like a bunch of hill days, and then there would just be a day off where it's just like the options have closed down for some reason, whatever different reasons, and then like maybe I'd get a day, 2 days, and then there'd be maybe another one, and it was like, oh god, I can't do this. So I genuinely originally thought I was maybe, if I was lucky with the weather, I could have got in about 80 days or something like that. And throughout February and into March, that just like up until yeah, so basically 97 in the end. Yeah, just kind of options. The irony actually is, I didn't think about this. If I had got my sort of like my early March finish, and if I had pals, and I would not have wanted to turn it into a super spreader event, which was probably happening by that point. So it's maybe lucky that the weather was really bad. Anyway.
Yeah, that's good way of looking. From Kathy Southwood, did you get any avalanches in the end?
Certainly debris, quite a lot of debris in all the right places, I suppose, but nothing I was ever involved in remotely. Yeah, nothing at all. I don't even think it was anything really sketchy. It was a funny winter. Sometimes it was like, oh, that slope is fine, yeah, no problem at all, or just like, I am not touching that. There's a meter of snow just piled into that gully, and it fell last night. It was quite wild, the winter like that. You kind of maybe didn't always know, but it was always. And the other part with the Munros, you know, the way there's always like a route finding way around about. I never fully appreciated that when I started doing winter walking. I just thought like Munros in winter, like, where do you go? How do you do this? And then I sort of realized it's like terrain features, man. You know, you just go around something, or you get out of it, or so.
No, very good. Rob Woodall again. Munros at night for your 5th round. I bet that's not been done.
Oh, that's a point.
Yeah.
I wondered if that's in a winter at night, or if that's just do them all at night. That's a.
Perhaps we can get Rob to try that one. That's probably one that's right. He hasn't done. From Andy Spenceley, what proportion of days were you walking on your own?
I think pretty much them all. There were some that I didn't, and that would have been like the first one. I'd maybe meet somebody in the last summit of the day and then walk down with them. I did some stuff with Helen, did all the Cairngorms with Helen. I did walk down Ben Nevis with her, but did a couple with Finlay actually, Loch Lochy. It's funny, I did a couple of hill days with like Finlay Wild, who like could support like anything in the world, and I did 2 really short hill days with him, Loch Lochy and then Cowland Forest. But and then that was really almost it. And then partners for the Coolin, Mike Lates, Dave McLeod, and that was almost it. I think the rest of it I just walked myself. But what I did do was I did have like Helen or Lorraine or somebody would like just come into a bothy, and I could say, oh, would you mind just taking some of the food and stuff like that and more just in, and then I'll just see you there at night, and then I just sort of one like last thing, cook up a meal, sleep, and then it's like, sorry, I'm away back out. I'd love to have a bothy night, but I just need to sleep. So stuff like that, yeah. But I mean, I should say like I got so much help from people. Like, I mean, I did it very much just me, and it was just me with my van, and I'm doing it myself, and that kind of introduced a lot of stuff. But I mean, the advantages I got just from friends was just like made it happen totally, not a shadow of a doubt. Yeah.
Well, and just a small amount of input from yourself as well. Okay, just 3 more questions from Keith Burns. After such an imaginative strategy, what next?
I suppose just midterm sort of stuff that I'm doing. Do a lot of rock climbing, some winter stuff, and I do, still doing tons of hills and stuff like that. So I suppose lots of wee goals. You know, I've got lots of routes that I want to climb. Get more winter stuff done. I'd like to finish my Munro tops. I've done 90%, I think. So just not that many. Corbett, some 2/3. So there's that as well. So there's all sorts of little things to do. You know, I don't have anything massive plans. I've got some stuff I'd like to do this year in Skye, but we'll see if it happens or not. But no like mega massive plans or anything like that. Just kind of continue what I just do normally, and maybe at some point something will bubble up, and you aim again at something big.
No, that's good. It's probably quite pragmatic as well, given the current state of global pandemics and stuff.
Take what you can get.
penultimate question from Richard Chandler. Did you use the MWIS avalanche forecast, and how did it work out? If you did, how did it work out for you?
I'm guessing, is that like, I'm guessing like SAIS would be the avalanche?
Oh, sorry, yeah. MWIS is the Mountain Weather Information Service forecast. That's not the avalanche service. Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah. Was it meaning like MWIS or
MWIS? Yes, yeah.
Okay, so using MWIS, yeah, every day, like just every day, getting an MWIS forecast. And I'd also, I find MWIS kind of funny because, you know, the way it will sort of give you that sort of, I mean, it's really good, obviously, but you get that text description, but sometimes doesn't quite. I don't know, it gives you a sort of, obviously the interpretation, but in some ways, like the parameters, I sort of feel like I'm missing sometimes. So I'd always check the pressure map as well. So I'd do MWIS and I checked the pressure map, and I found the two of them together was like really, really good. I hadn't discovered that there's a mountain forecast website that I've only just discovered, and it's really visual. And I went, God, if I had that at the time, oh. But MWIS perfect, MWIS totally great. And yeah, I thought the pressure map was really good to use, just because if MWIS said something like, you know, there was going to be heavy snow, you would maybe just get more of a sense of whether it was just intermittent showers or if it was going to just be wipeout or whether it was going to clear later. You know, you just could tell more about how everything moves through time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very good, very good. And final question from P. Kurt. Epic work, Kev, super impressive. What was your energy/fitness like as you progressed through the round? Did you feel super strong at the end, or just broken and needing a long rest?
Pretty, yeah, no, felt pretty consistent, actually. Yeah, felt pretty consistent. I felt like I was, always kind of right on the sort of edge of kind of where I was happy to go at without feeling like I was going to break myself. I didn't want to break myself. And I didn't break myself when COVID came around and it was like back home and it's just going on bike rides. I don't want to stay inside. I can't stay inside. I just want to be outside right now. So I did tons of cycling. In terms of fitness, I don't think it did change. I think in the first week it like rapidly rose, but then I think it reached a point, which was the point at which I was hitting in terms of hill volume. And I think it kind of stayed there and it just sort of maintained, because the flip side is that, you know, if you're kind of going out every day, okay, you are getting tired and recovering at night and tired, but I don't think you're getting that like super compensation where you're getting higher. You know, like in normal life, you go and do hill days and then you get a day off and you really would sort of rise. But I think the sort of just the doing the everyday is maybe just a bit too much for that. And so it was just consistent. I think I just tried to be just consistent as I could. And that was like like consistent sleep and consistent food, and just don't miss anything ever in terms of routine. Just keep the routine as similar as possible. And it all kind of seemed to work in that okay. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, we've got one bonus question that's just come in from Callum McPhail. This really is the last. Thanks for the heads up for this talk. Good to see you. How do you keep hydrated through big hill days in winter with everything frozen? And did you take a flask or did you keep it light?
Cool. Yeah, I took a flask. Yeah, I actually had a lot of thought about that kind of when it was, yeah, how do you do that? And I thought the best way for me, I've got like a sort of liter and a half flask, which is like not a lot of liquid at all. So fill the flask in the morning, go out in the hill. I'd probably like really well hydrate in the morning, probably like, 4, 5, 6, 7 cups of tea and juice and drinks, and just slaughtering back fluid till I'm perfect in the morning. And then on the hill itself, just the flask. I don't even think I'd take water. I think I just did the hill days with a flask and that was it. I'd probably get quite dehydrated, but I just, yeah, as you say, drinking cold water, it's like, oh. But I felt really happy doing that. I felt kind of still really good, even with just that fluid. And then obviously get down at night and then just ruthlessly rehydrate. And that seemed to work out kind of well. Yeah. One final sort of thing related to that, and it's partly relates to the nutritional side as well, was that I really felt like there would be without the time constraints and always feeling like you've got to do the next thing, I always felt that you'd have a biologically, like physiologically perfect way to eat and a physiologically perfect way to hydrate. And then you bring in like the winter constraints and usually like the time constraints, and there's like a sort of middle ground that you come back to. And that's like one of them where okay, it's not perfect, but in terms of just trying to get as much done, it suits me as well as I need. And just likewise with eating, like I would have in the hill, it would just be cram snacks into the mouth, and that's all you don't want to stop, you don't want to do anything, you just want to pull out of your pocket, you want to shove it in your mouth and you just keep on walking. So it's just to keep moving. Yeah, but it all worked out. Yep.
Well, look, Kev, thank you so much. That was a really inspiring talk, and brilliant photos and brilliant chat. Just to remind us for everybody listening, please, if you're in a position to do so, please donate to Lochaber Mountain Rescue. I've pasted the link again into the chat window, or you can just Google it. This talk's being videoed, so Sean, thank you for tidying that up, and it'll be online in a few days if anybody wants to share this with friends or family or whatever. Kev, thank you so much, and hopefully see you in the hills soon.
No, listen, big thanks for having me here. Yeah, no, cheers.
All right, all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kev. It was really
Cheers.
good.